All right. So I thought it'd be good to talk about this report that came out in the week by CB Insights about some of the generative AI predictions. I thought it was is interesting, some of the topics that were there. And why don't we just have a chat through that, Draw?
Yeah.
That sounds so enthusiastic.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, look, I think there's a few, I guess, interesting topics, and talking about this for in this sort of first phase, we've talked a lot about infrastructure, and so that was one of the I guess starting points of the discussion. Talking about this, high-end chips consuming a lot of energy, and just the fact that the energy that's being consumed is the size of some small countries, so Georgia and Guatemala, and it's pretty huge. And I think we haven't really discussed that around the implications of AI in terms of the environment and that power consumption and some of the potential solutions to that. So I thought it was interesting, and just talking about the fact that 80% of data center power will be consumed by AI, and that's a pretty big environmental impact. And so I think there's going to have to be solutions that are in that space. And funny enough, besides that demand, talking about data centers being a big part of what companies are seeing as a challenge. And so we're starting to see this in with lots of companies now that data centers, there's a limiting factor that we have at that infrastructure side. And so some of the new technologies, and this is something that I've seen in some companies talking about liquid cooling, and I guess reducing that cost of that power consumption, but equally around the drive for nuclear. So I don't know what you sort of think about that infrastructure side of things, how we're going to deal with the demand. What's your sort of take on that?
This is the big end of town, right? This is the topics for not the early stage investors, more like the KKR, the big boys. This is absolutely. Look, this is a fundamental technological shift that puts a lot of computation in the cloud, and energy is going to go through the roof. And the most efficient energy we have is actually nuclear. So I've been tracking I've been listening to these podcasts about the energy transitions and energy startups for a while, and it's coming. Like, people are opening up to nuclear options. Nuclear is actually a safer, despite a lot of what people think, it actually is a safer technology than many other technologies. We had Fukushima, we had Chernobyl. This really etched opinion in the generation of population and politicians. But as the picture is not so simple, so I'm not going to be surprised if the next generation of data centers is powered by nuclear at all, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, no, but I think we've got to find a solution to this massive increase in compute. This is not without cost. We've started to see some startups talking about using research they have around how the brain works, because the brain is highly efficient at using power in comparison to the chips, and the chips are all on. Talking about these sort of neuromorphic sensors that I've sort of seen, fascinating stuff, but very early as to how we solve these problems. So what I love is these problems, these challenges of us scaling with AI are going to bring out solutions that are opportunities in themselves. So look, the next thing in the report was around data scarcity, and saying that really by 2026 we'll exhaust all the data that's out there for training LLMs. And so what do we do about that at sort of high quality data? And so really around saying that internet text is not really a moat, and scraping proprietary sources is getting harder. So there's legal issues we're seeing right now with it, New York Times and OpenAI and so forth. But the big thing, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is these big sources, TripAdvisor, Reddit, all these sorts of things. And one of the things, and I think I think Darren, who's one of our venture partners in the fund, sent us, I don't know if you read the article around search, SEO being dead, and going, well, the Google algorithms themselves now are redirecting to these bigger sources as opposed to some of the smaller, so killing some businesses that we see. But I mean, what do you think about the way that's going to work and the value of the data that's in these bigger, bigger pools of data?
We talked about this $20 trillion stack that's been disrupted by AI, and it's basically the internet economy. The internet economy, which is around, you create websites, you sell ads to the websites, and there's like a value chain that starts from the browser all the way to the end product that's being sold by the ad that you've seen along the way as you've been browsing to your destination. And that whole thing is being disrupted. If I don't need to travel. It's a bit like staying at home, how they disrupted, highway advertising, right? So if I don't need to travel, I just ask the AI and I get the answer, then I don't need to see all those ads. So obviously there has to be a different way to monetize content, right? So if we see now vendors selling their access to their content, that's what they used to do in the form of advertising. Now they basically sell it for, this thing that will replace the vast majority of revenue that they will see from just casual advertising, which is AI and oracles and AI-powered search and LLMs and so forth. So we've seen that coming, and I think we have like even the video to demonstrate the prediction. So that's what I'm saying. If I'm sitting on TripAdvisors and I see my revenue from advertising declining, and I see a growth in interest in people using my data for their products. We call it training, but actually, like at the end of the day, it's the ability to answer a question that's based on my data. It's not just training the foundation model to think through how to complete text, right? Sentences. So I don't think training is going to be the right word we're going to use. It's just access to that data. It's exactly the same as used to be in the search business model. But every website has this thing you add to it, which is robots.txt, it's used to be called. And if you allow or not allow indexing, and it's kind of honorary systems, honorary based system. So if you put google.txt file on your website that says allow robot equal no or false, then Google will not index that site. So isn't that the same? You're just basically doing business on selling different way of selling the content.
Yeah. I mean, look, this whole issue of where are we going to get the data from will make those companies more valuable. I mean, one of the other things I did want to talk about later today, but I mean, is around News Corp as well. Have partnered with OpenAI, and they've got a content deal as well. So, like I say, this is very interesting to see what's going to happen with the media. How we get sources, but equally these synthetic data sets. So that's one of the other sort of discussions in the report was really around the demand for these synthetic data sets.
When it says that Sam Altman was quoted as saying all data will be soon synthetic, all data used for what will be synthetic? Training foundation models?
I would say training models we're going to run, in that sort of general sense at least, that we're going to run out of things that are out there in the public that way, because it'll require synthetic data. I think I've seen it's quite interesting how Tesla do that with their cars, and they kind of using real world data and their synthetic data around simulations and so forth. So
that's a great example. I think Tesla is a great example. So if you want to train a self-driving car, you need a lot of data for that. But that data doesn't literally need to be San Francisco, 2022. It can be, you need like 10 million variations of stop signs that you can find in the real world, and you can generate 10x of them with different permutations in order to train on all the permutation possible. So so that's kind of how I think about synthetic data generation. So you've got the foundation models, and you've got like training on top of that for use cases. I'm not surprised or shocked by that, and I think it's interesting to think about different business models. You want to train your legal AI. I think that would be difficult to generate synthetic data for that one.
Probably, yeah. So look, I guess following on this infrastructure side of things, and I think that's the first part of the report that we're covering off, talking about, obviously NVIDIA have had this huge uplift, huge demand, but one of the things that I thought was quite funny was I reckon it's better to be a chip dealer than a drug dealer. If you look look at this graph, you see Nvidia. The cost to make the H100s is $3,000, and people are selling them for 97. So that's a pretty good markup on the demand and supply and demand of those GPUs. So it's I didn't even see the quote by Elon, but I agree. You know, it's crazy, the price and the way that's working out. But you know, once again, this is causing the next stage is around, you know, who's using that. We see all the big players have a massive, you know, thousands of GPUs, H100s, and you know, that's why no one can get a hold of these.
Like just Meta the way he goes all in on technology and then misses it. Like, you know, Zook spends like, I don't know, $25 billion on Reality Labs, and like, we don't talk about it anymore. And a year before that, tens of billions on crypto stuff. We don't talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
The least efficient company in the history of the world.
Well, but you know, they only have to get it right once, and it'll be that another big kick. So, you know, I don't know. You know, Instagram and Facebook, WhatsApp are pretty good sources of you know, being able to do that.
Seems to have a good track record to hit anything. You know, those are acquisitions.
They are, but I don't know. Like they have some tech there that I think the open sourcing of the models that they're doing. I wonder whether that's going to be a big win for them in the long term. But yeah, I think it's interesting just to see all of the different, you know, who's buying the stuff, but also the fact that this is pushing. You know, their customers of the chips, like people like Amazon and Microsoft, are now creating their own chips. And I think long term, Nvidia really can't sustain that kind of level of demand that they have, because they're not supplying it, and we're seeing what's happening there. But I think that'll level out. Question is how long that's going to take.
I think it's gonna play out to be, you know, who has a better chip, who's gonna win here. In hardware, it's very. It's not software. It's very hard to hardware is harder, and you know, Amazon is, you know, maybe they're gonna make a chip that's good for them, and meanwhile you've got a chip dedicated kind of company like Nvidia has been doing it, has better infrastructure, supply chain, engineers, R&D, etc. I wouldn't bet on those just yet. I get that they move into that as a way of generating like alternatives for themselves and de-risking, and I don't think they're gonna win yet. It's too early to say.
Other things around bad actors targeting language models, and so we're seeing, you know, people try and manipulate the models to try and get them to do something that they shouldn't. And so I think this is another interesting sort of thing around the behaviors of bad actors. And you know, how we're going to defend against that, or you know, what's going to happen in there. But we're starting to see that as a trend, and you know, I think with enterprises, and I think this is one of the concerns for larger enterprises with a big adoption of AI, and particularly generative AI, is around this leaking of data, you know, poisoning of that data.
Here's my position on that one. If you dial the clock back to 23 years ago, all right. Google is coming out and people are start searching for information. And the main thing the people used to say back then, don't trust what's on the internet. You know, who do you know? Someone wrote something and you're referencing it, or there's an article in Wikipedia. So what? You know, here I can change the article in Wikipedia, right? And we survived. The world survived with that, right? There's always an information uncertainty. So like, well, how is it different? How is there's news now, and we always referencing news that says, some article that you're sharing here, but the news is always like, this technology is not trustworthy. There's some risks associated, and it's true. There are some risks associated with it. It's not super trustworthy. But if you take the view of like, okay, like, do I read this news right now, and how do I project what's going to happen in the future? The answer is that this is the noise that you get at the beginning of something new.
But the difference right now, Dror, is you can compromise your own organization's data, or be misled using some of these things through hallucinations. And so the implications of that, you know, like the Samsung thing, where Samsung, you know, some of the employees put one of their secret projects into ChatGPT, which then was trained on it. Now,
yeah, but hold on, wait. how is it different than like someone Samsung by mistake got put their entire PDF of the plans for something in a web enabled, and it's been indexed by Google. It's the same story, and it happened before. So I think that like the place where this is getting interesting and scary is when you understand that AI is a decision taking, not just decision support systems. And I think that's where the conversation, that's what I'd like to say, to learn more about what these guys are saying. Is like when you have a system that's self-driving and it is training on potentially dangerous, like wrong data, or in some maliciously changed data, and it's designed to do something and being hacked or whatnot, then that's something we have not seen yet before, right? So the decision-taking system, because the risk of AI is not just it's not in the area of like a lawyer somewhere referenced a case law that didn't exist. Okay, he's an idiot. Like, okay, fine. Like, sure, don't do that again. And we can learn from that as a society. But when we have autonomous systems that have been trained, and there's the poisoning that happened in the training data and subversion, then that's super dangerous, I guess, and super interesting. And I'm not reading about that so much.
Yeah. Well, but look, I think this challenge creates another opportunity once again. So in that LLM security, we've started to see, I think in some of our events and other things, we've hosted some early stage ideas about how that can be. And so, we're seeing some of those things. So I think, well, the key point is the solution to this is that LLM security, and there's some interesting, companies that have raised money in that space. We've seen a few here in Australia, but there's a vast majority, in other places. So I think this is interesting. The next topic was really around ML ops and that sort of consolidation in here. And so once again, one of our discussions has been, where are the opportunities? Opportunities are also in that tooling to support all of this. So quite a lot of different categories in here around what's happening. But it's quite fragmented. And so once again, I think there's opportunities in this space. Yeah, the question is there a winner take all, and Databricks and H2O or whatever? Is this sort of what customers are wanting? But I think this is what's coming out. The challenges with scaling AI solutions, bringing them into the corporate space. I think this is where all these sorts of issues are going to come out, and there are opportunities in that. But the risk. The challenge is, you can see some companies that have raised money, been acquired, and then looked at, what they were acquired for was less than the money that they raised.
Well, that's also a function of the bubble. I mean, those guys raised in the peak of the bubble. So surprise, surprise.
Yeah. Actually, it's probably less
AI, more bubble.
Yeah. Look, I think that the thing here is we know all the big cloud offers are the ones that can only really play in a lot of this space as well. It makes sense. So let's move on to.
So I've got statistics for you that's interesting. Something like 2/3 of Y Combinator startups right now are AI, and 70% of them are SaaS. And a lot of people call them, they call it a wrapper, an AI wrapper. So, you're not the true AI company. You wrap around an AI model, or obviously an API like ChatGPT, like OpenAI. They call it AI wrapper. It's a little bit derogatory, but the point I've seen in a conversation between the two senior guys at Y Combinator is that you can think of any SaaS as SQL wrapper, which is true. It's some sort of, at the end of the day, most SaaS companies, okay, not any, whatever. That's very very broad, but a lot of point SaaS companies, that they start selling a solution to enterprise or to SMEs, they are always, at the end of the day, some sort of database schema and some sort of UI on top of that, and that's just easy to say, oh, it's just an SQL wrapper. So the fact that they're basically, someone says, oh, that's an AI wrapper, I think it misses the point completely. And I buy that vision. I agree with that. Like, if you have a solution that solves a problem of, like, we sell dentists or some legal firm or accountants or whatnot, I mean, you don't need to be an AI company like in the same that OpenAI is. You need to solve the problem of your constituents, of your customers, your audience. And I think, and that's interesting. Trend, right? To see that so many of those are basically AI SaaS, and they're lightweight in the AI, but they're not light on the target audience. They're solving business problems, and I like that statistics.
Look, I think one of our discussions has always been, AI is not the solution. It's part of a solution, and so I think that's to that exact point. I think you can still have a valuable business that is a wrapper that sits on top of one of the LLMs, but I do think you need to have something that provides a lot of value. And so if that's there and you can get traction and you can get customers that love it, you have an interface that is really either unique or very simple, or people really, I think that is a strong business, and it's going to enhance some businesses that are already doing well, and it will actually help some businesses that were lagging to then compete. And so I definitely agree with that. We're seeing that ourselves, right? But the question is, there's always that defensibility discussion that anyone can do it. We also have that anyone can build Facebook, anyone can build, certain other products. So I think that's what's going to be interesting to see, which are the products that get that traction and get that sort of network effect of people really taking it on.
So it was for the record, it was a chat in a YouTube show called No Priors, and we were interviewing Gary Tan, CEO of Y Combinator.
My favorite topic back I think in one of our first videos, we were like, where are we going with AI? And we did talk about AI girlfriends, there was a big discussion of this, and we've seen things in this space. We've looked at some of the traction that's happening, which is kind of scary, but also, but I thought some of the interesting things is where we're going as humans. We can see that at least American men and women talking about this, having less sex, how AI plays into that, and if you look at some of the way people meet and using Tinder and how effective or not that is and what that means, I think AI will play into this space a lot more. We've seen some of the dating providers, Bumble and so forth, talking about using generative AI to go out and work on your behalf to find the right kind of partner. So look, I think it's interesting. I don't even know the implications of all of this. I don't think we understand as a society, but it's happening, and the startups that we're seeing are starting to get traction. I think it'll be commoditized to a certain extent, or you're going to once again see the big players that already are in this space, come into it. So I don't know. I don't know what your sort of think about how AI plays into this, but this is a trend. We've seen it, predicted it. The question is, what implications? What do you sort of think about this?
Taking it at face value, it's very highly depressing. If I'm trying to put a skeptic, think what a skeptic would say. I'm not sure. Look, if loneliness is an epidemic, I don't think it's a new epidemic. I think it's the new data. We have data that shows it, finally calculating it. But I think people were always lonely, and especially older people.
I don't know. I would disagree.
You reckon it's a new phenomena?
I think technology is making, whilst people are connected, they're less physically, they're spending more time on their devices, watching things that are always presented to them by an algorithm. Now, that doesn't mean that they're connected. It means it's what's presented, and that's why we have a higher level of mental health issues and so forth because of that. So I'm kind of contradicting a little bit about what I think about this, but I think we do have more loneliness because people are spending time on their device. I don't think we had that algorithmically being done before. So before, people might watch TV or read a lot of things.
But that's a good point. So before, people watch TV. So there has been how many news items we grew up where they said American youth sitting 8 hours a day on TV and not socializing, and that's a big problem, and all sorts of politicians were taking that to get some headlines out of that. It's huge, and there's an argument that says these are moral scares, moral panics that happen whenever there's a new technology that is just changing the status quo, and people disregard the fact that the status quo was never static. That's the counter argument. Now, if you ask me, am I ecstatic about the fact that people are sitting in a group and scrolling phones right now every day? Yeah, no, I'm not. But I'm just saying prior generations were equally less ecstatic, where kids were sitting 8 hours a day on TV.
I want to give the difference between TV and Netflix, for example. So TV is using algorithms, data to understand what is what is more likely to keep you on there. So I think they're two different beasts, and we're seeing that people spend that time. And to my point, people are spending less time with people. So I would argue this trend is going to continue. People are spending less time with humans, and that's one of the big things I believe. We are going to value human connection more with AI, but we're going to have to make that effort to go and do those things, and that will be treasured by people. More in-person events, doing things with real connections are going to become far more valuable. But I think if you value that, it's not that you value that. I think people even have to be aware of this, and we're going to have to educate people around. There's a use of this technology, and then there's actually going back to our humanity in terms of just connecting with people in real life, moving, all of these things. I think you can't replicate necessarily that, and we are human beings in the end that need to do these things. And I think this is where I think we're going to have an explosion of people using these tools, and an explosion of people who are going to have some massive implications. And so I think that's what's interesting coming out of the report, is just starting to see how parts of our lives are being implicated, and equally around how we interact. And so if you look at how different age brackets are interacting with bots, we see, there's quite a high number of 18 to 24s will hang out. So it is going to be very, very interesting to see what happens on all of this. And so, a lot of things around these AI characters and how people are going to evolve that way. So I think AI friendship will be a thing, and I think we'll also be able to replicate ourselves to have friends. And I think this goes into the realms, something I am looking at as well, and it goes into the Black Mirror realms again, around if someone's going to pass away and they're able to capture their own essence using this technology, will people continue to have that? I know, and it sounds weird, but I actually think we're on the cusp of that happening. There's been quite a few things we talked about last year that are coming true, and now we're sort of seeing the same things in these spaces.
I reckon that it's been good that we have the video of our conversations over the last year to, I think, demonstrate that most of what we're saying is come to fruition, which basically is the type of AI edge that we have in this. And that's why we're doing this show, to stay on top of the trend and be able to forecast a little bit into the future, so you can hopefully make better investments. This, if you take a step back, so there was Google I/O the other day. This week was Microsoft Build, these are the developer conferences. And soon is coming the Apple one, and it's a big. The platform shift started. It's in full momentum. It's still in the beginning, but it's massive. And Satya, the CEO of Microsoft, goes on stage and describes that he's as excited this week as he was 25, 30 years ago when they were pushing Win32. Have you heard of Win32?
Yeah, it went from NT. It went from, like, I'm showing my age and nerdiness, but yeah, it went from a desktop to a server architecture, and so it could be more multi-processing, all that stuff. So
well, that probably was a part of Win32, but Win32 in itself is the Microsoft developer kit for allowing other developers to build graphical user interfaces on the operating system. So and that's kind of rhymes with what we talked about a few weeks ago, how people are comparing the dramatic change of AI as a different user interface, basically. And we quoted Bill Gates talking about that's the two things that excited me the most, was the graphical user interface and then large language models, because it's a different way to interface into the computer. So that was really interesting to hear. And then what he talks about is basically, and then they announce a bunch of announcements, and they talk about how they're baking those capabilities as developer tools to all the layers of the stack, from the hardware to the operating systems to the drivers to the applications frameworks to servers and so forth and so on. And these days, the stacks is something crazy no one understands because it's span edge computing, cloud computing, and whatnot. But it's I think that's basically the essence of the story, is that AI is shifted from a product on a ChatGPT type product in a tab somewhere, because I've got many tabs here, but one of them is ChatGPT on the left, for being a thing that every application developer can now build, train, deploy, etc., etc. And I think that's basically the story of like AI is taking over software. You used to say software is eating the world, so AI is eating software. I think that's gonna be something that we're gonna be talking about it. Other than that, the interesting thing is like a lot of focus in this conversation in the Microsoft build was around on device, right? They're pushing up a new type of computer called Copilot PC. So not personal PC, personal computer. That was the innovation at the time, personal computer. And now it's a Copilot PC. It's a rebranding, and now it's rethinking the computer. It's as big as that. So that's what Microsoft is trying to do, right? To push up AI to every developer, be the platform on which they build apps, and then a new type of computer, not the personal computer, but the Copilot computer. Super interesting. What Google has done, we talked about last week. Basically, they're getting AI into the web. Why? Because that's where Google makes the money, in the web. They don't really make a lot of money out of Android, but that's the most installed operating system in the world. So what is Apple going to do?
Well, that's the thing, and I'm quite interested to see. Part of the discussion in the report as well was around 15 years after the iPhone, Apple's not, kind of been hitting this innovation plateau. And I think that's true to some extent. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. I think they've got an event on June 10th. But, they're talking about their on-device, their new features. So there's sort of a real search for what's going to happen on this consumer device. But I think they have this project Grey Matter and AI integration within that. I think that'll be interesting. They're talking about what they're going to do with Safari and visual search, and they're talking about that partnership with OpenAI, and so part of what I think will be interesting is to see how well Apple do it. And they have every chance. The way they integrate products within their platforms, whether it be iOS or Mac OS, it feels quite seamless.
So I would tell you my point. Who has the most chance of building the AI computer? So Microsoft is calling it the Copilot PC. Apple has been building the entire strategy is around the iOS, that's the mobile device and its ecosystem. So they're not suckers over there in Apple. I think they will be able, I don't know, I don't have inside information. This thing I'm reading, they're going to basically rethink, it's a rethinking of the computer in the age of AI. We saw Siri as the first attempt at that. That didn't really, take off as big as it should be, but it was waiting for the innovation. So I expect they will basically announce 1,000 little things coming soon that will all start shifting how they think of their operating system and ecosystem in the AI age. So let me summarize. Google is AIing the web. Microsoft is AIing the enterprise and the PC, and Apple will be AIing the iOS ecosystem. That's my forecast.
Well, I'm going to throw another one in, and that probably speaks to the thing I have on the screen right now, which is, will OpenAI build this product and steal, the Apple sweetheart Johnny Ives to come and create a unique device? And it may be a phone, it may not be a phone. And to me, that could be quite interesting to see what they come up with as a sort of outside, kind of person coming in, outside company coming in. They also have a pretty good ability to be able to do this as well as a new company, or as one of the new unicorns in the space, really. So and then we're going to see. I think as well the other side will be the wearables around, whether it be those smart glasses, Apple Vision Pro. I don't believe that's really there yet. But the form factor is going to change, and we're going to have something good. So I think the report has been really interesting, just around where we're going. Maybe we can even go into more. I know we've probably run out of time today to go any further in our discussion on this, but I feel like a lot of what I sort of take heart from the fact that a lot of what we've been talking about, to your point as well, has it's coming true. And I think we're still at this early days. That's what's exciting. I think for founders and investors, it's still, we've got to tread carefully, and we're going to keep evolving, keep changing what we do, not get stuck with a particular way of thinking and products themselves, but keep looking ahead and going, how do I adapt my solution? How do I make this a commercially successful product? And so great things are happening this last year. I think it's a really good prediction of where we're going. I think it's nice to have seen what we've predicted previously is starting to come true, and I think what we're seeing for the next year is going to be really interesting. Maybe we can start to look at that more. And we've talked about agents and how we're going to have this within the operating systems, and I sort of see that as where we're really going as well. And so I think it's a really great time. It's been great just talking a little bit about what we've been seeing, and you can see how much progress has been made in the last year, and even what's going to happen in the subsequent years. So I feel like it's exciting. I think it's a real privilege to be part of this growth and looking at that. And I love it every day. We're seeing some really great things that are happening. Yesterday I talked with a doctor who's heavily involved in this space, and hearing some of the things that we're seeing in health can really move us forward as well. And education today, I was looking at a video of the founder of Khan Academy, Sal Khan, with his son, showing his son having a tutor using, and so look, I think this is what's great. We're really moving leaps and bounds across lots of sectors, and so exciting times ahead. Opportunities, I think, for everyone ahead. And I think the one thing I realize is you can't ignore this. You have to actually get on board. I think it's been an interesting discussion today, Draw. So that's another This Week in AI. I will catch you next week.
Bye bye.